Boy, do I have some exciting things to talk to you about today. With the new G Series, we actually have a faster arm in, a faster boom up, and a faster swing acceleration. So if you have a contractor that's digging trench or loading trucks, and he's piling the material in his spoil pile beside the trench, he's going to get there quicker. Now, at the end of the day, that means to load more trucks. So there's a couple other things I want to show you about this machine. You also notice up in here, this is a 350G bucket, but it'll also fit on a 350D. So that means that all the components that's on this machine are the same as what was on the D series. So if we take a look at the arm, the boom, the cylinders, the coupler, the bucket, they're all the same. Now if you go to the 240, the 250, the 270, and the 390, all the components are the same there. So buckets will fit and your inventory won't have to be quite as high. Now there's a couple things that I'd like to talk to you about that were carryover from the D series. First of all, in this area right here, on the end of the stick, we actually used tungsten carbide coating. And tungsten carbide coating, you actually wear the bucket ears. It's a harder material than the bucket ears, so you wear the bucket ears instead of wearing the end of the stick. It's lots easier to replace bucket ears than it is the end of the stick. Now another point up here is this is where we grease the pin, the bucket pin. We grease it in the bulkhead. We don't grease it in the bucket ears or in the end of the pin. Now if we grease the end of the pin, it'd make a lighter pin. It wouldn't be quite as strong. This is where the grease needs to be. Also on the inside here, we use what we call powdered metal oil impregnated bushings. The idea with the powdered metal is to extend the grease interval on the machine. Now there's a couple things I want you to notice up on the stick and the boom here, is we use tabs. We have tabs that's already put on the machine. Now a lot of our competition out there, what they do is they have to weld the tabs on afterwards. Now you could imagine a field installed and welding tabs on there, what the boom and arm's going to look like after a few years. Even though they would paint them, it's still going to take and look a little ragged. Now if you take a look at the boom here, we actually have 3 bulkheads in our boom. Only manufacturer to use 3 bulkheads. We got 1, 2, 3, and you can actually see them. Now what happens when an operator starts to pry with a bucket? He doesn't pry with the center of the bucket because he can't see it. He actually pries with this corner over here. And he pries to get a piece of concrete in there, and think of the twist he's putting on the bucket, the arm, and the boom. With the extra bulkhead in there, we don't have any problems with our boom. I want to take you back in this area right back here, and let's take a look at this area. Now a lot of our competition out there, they put another piece of steel in here. Look how clean this is. And think about a contractor that would be taking in clearing trees. And they get pine needles and they get pine cones in here. Look how easy this would be to clean out. And think about it, if you build a dam in here and you got a rain, just think about where that's freezing around there in cold weather. Also I want you to look here, and this is our swing bearing. Our swing bearing on the machine, we actually use 2 seals. We use an upper seal and a lower seal. Only manufacturer use the upper seal. We also grease it, and here's where you grease swing bearing here. This is a 500-hour grease interval. And the way you grease it is you take and put your grease gun here, pump it 5 or 6 times, rotate the machine 90 degrees, 5 or 6 times, rotate it 90 degrees, 5 and 6 times until you get all the way around the machine. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Matt. Matt?
Thank you, Michael. Continuing on from the D series to the G series is our proven undercarriage design. Our track frame has a steep angle for easy clean out, a large cutout area underneath the carrier roller to relieve material away from the roller to protect it. Large carrier rollers with a wide spread. That wide spread evens the stresses out as the track's going up and over the rollers. It also minimizes the track whip coming off of the sprocket when the machine is propelling. We have 3 track guides. That helps keep the track chain in line when you're off level working on a slope. A heavy front gusseted area here at the idler frame That heavy gusset keeps that idler frame from spreading over time. Our track chain is sealed and lubricated. That's for longevity and for quiet when it's walking, when the machine's propelling. On the 350G, the roller, the bottom roller, has been improved with a polished metal shaft and a greater thrust plate surface for longevity and durability. The 350G also offers a heavy-duty track chain option for thicker rails, larger roller diameter shaft, larger shaft, and thicker pads. That's for applications where you're using a single bar grouser or you're propelling long distances. We use a bolt-on step. The step being bolt-on, and we have a bolt-on extension for wider pads. Using the bolt-on step instead of a weld-on step, when this gets damaged out in the field, it's easy to replace. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Michael.
Thank you, Matt. Going to climb up on this machine, you always want to use 3 points. Either 2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand. So we're going to climb up on the machine here, and we get to this point right here. I want to show you one thing right here. This happens to be your toolbox. Notice, it's a toolbox, not a battery box. Now this is a handy spot for the operator to put a bucket of oil. Or he may put his shackles in here. Or he may put his slings, his chains, and other things in the machine, and they stay right here. They don't roll against the battery. You also notice that it's lockable. And it's got a place here for a grease gun. If I took the grease gun out right here, there's a grease bank right here. You notice your grease bank. It's similar to what we had on the D series. There's 5 zerks right here that actually grease all the upper structure on the boom. I'm going to climb up on the machine, and if you notice, if it was a muddy day, I could clean my shoes off right here. Notice that you have a little rough edge right here. And I have volcano plates right here, so it's going to be good traction as I'm climbing up here. So I climb up here, and you notice once I learn the first step, they're all even. So I climb up on the machine like this and come on up to the top. Now what I want to show you up here on top is actually the fuel cap. It's green. That signifies it's diesel. Next thing is says right here on this decal, ultra low sulfur diesel fuel only. Now, most manufacturers, that's all they're making right now is diesel fuels. All your distributors will be distributing low sulfur, so it's no big deal. I climb back up on here, and I want to take you to this little air valve right here. Now, let's say your contractor's taking and digging in a trench box, and the operator gets too close and damages one of the auxiliary hydraulic lines, and it starts seeping. What we suggest you do is actually put the bucket on the ground, turn the tractor off. The next step is for the operator to come back here and push this button. And what that button does is it actually drains the pressure off of the tank. There's about 24 psi in there, and it drains that pressure. So the leak doesn't sit there and drip, drip, drip. I want you to notice the deck on this machine. Look at the deck. It's got sandpaper, it's got volcano areas, so it's easy to walk around here and have good traction. The next point I want to point out over here happens to be something that's new on this machine. Here's a rain cap. This is where we get all our air to the engine. The filter's right below it. Now remember what we used to have. We used to bring all the air in through the side panel over here. And when we did that, and you're tracking a lot, you got a lot of dust in there. And it sort of shortened our life on our air filter here. So this is going to be a lot better. It's the cleanest place on the machine getting your air from. And once you notice the hood here, now the hood's changed. Remember with the older machine, you come over here and you open the whole hood up. Now we have components around here and we bolted the hood down. You don't need to open the whole hood up because there's no service area right there. So okay, let's look here underneath what's underneath the machine. First we're going to show this return line. This is your hydraulic return line going over to the tank. Now guess what? Right here is your hydraulic cooler. Okay, next to you right here is you have your coolant recovery tank. This is for your radiator. Now we use special coolant in this. It's a John Deere coolant that you can get, and they use it because of the Tier 4 engine. So your radiator would be the next one in line over here. On the back far over here in the back corner is where your aftercooler is going to be. Now there's a couple things I want to point out in here. Notice your fan guard. And look at the size of the fan in here. The fan has more blades on it and it's bigger. Another point right here is this is a hydraulic fan. And a hydraulic fan's only going to turn fast as it's need to. Now a couple things that does for you is it makes the machine quieter, and not only quieter, it also saves fuel. Now we can also put the optional reverser on there. And if the operator decides to reverse the fan, or he has it in the automatic mode, you'll see a big dust storm come out on this side of the machine. Another important part right here, I want to point out right here, this is a serpentine belt that actually runs the alternator and the air conditioner. The nice thing there, that used to be a V-belt, and sometimes it would kick off. So this is an improvement that we have on the machine. Now if you take a look at our Tier 4 engine, what we have here, this is what we called a cooled exhaust gas recirculation. And we use this because it's simple, it's proven, it's fuel efficient, it's fully integrated and fully serviced. Now I'm going to put oil in the machine. Here's where I check my dipstick right here. If I come over here, this is where it actually put the low ash oil in here. If you notice it on the cap right here, it says CL4. That's a John Deere Plus 50 Series 2 oil that we will be putting in here. Now let's point out some of the other components right here. Now we get our air coming in from our rain cap right here, and it goes into a fixed turbo. Fixed turbo's right here. And in the back side right over here, you have your variable geometry turbo. And this thing right here is called an air throttle. The air throttle is also going to have a sensor on here, gauge. And it sends a signal to the ECU. And the ECU is also talking with your after treatment device that's over in this area, and it's going to open and close to put fresh air into your manifold. Okay, I want to point out some of the points over here on this side. If we look through these little crevices right here, we're going to see sort of a corrugated type of material right here, and this is called a bellows. And what happens here is we have an isolator for your after treatment device, and you have an isolator for your engine. And they're both running different rhythms. So you have to put these bellows in there so you get a good fit in there. Okay, your after treatment device is located down here on the bottom. You can't really see it, but if you take a look at the top here, we have a chrome diffuser on here. This is optional. A regular one would be a black diffuser. Now if you take a look at this and you start the tractor up, you're going to find that this machine runs a lot quieter. Not only quieter, it's going to run cleaner. So if we couple that with what we talked about in the front of the machine, we talked about it being faster. We talk about it being cleaner, and we talk about being quieter. So we can say it's quicker, cleaner, and quieter. I'm going to turn it back to Matt.
Okay. The G-Series fuel tank has been redesigned, and the bottom of the tank is a stainless steel surface for corrosion resistance. There's a 30 millimeter deep sump in the bottom of the tank to collect the condensation. There's a drain line that runs across the machine to the pump house to a valve right here where my hand is. Turn the valve and you drain the water off the fuel tank right here. Very eco-friendly, you can capture that water, but very easy to drain the condensation out of the tank. For G-Series, we've continued with the round hydraulic tank. Round hydraulic tank has one vertical seam for strength. The big benefit of a round hydraulic tank is 100% circulation of your oil. Has an internal filter in there and a suction screen. The sight gauge for daily check is right here, easily seen by the operator from the ground. In the pump house, we have remote filtration, the engine oil filter, we have the pilot oil filter, and the main fuel filters, And this particular machine is equipped with the optional severe duty 60 micron fuel filter. This filter is for areas with substandard fuel. Tier 4 engines do not like water, therefore we need to have ability to get the water out of the fuel that collects in the bottom of the sumps. Easily accessed right here from the ground, easily drained, something the operators need to do on a daily basis. We have dynamic oil sampling valves. These valves, when you hook the kit in to take your sample, are taking a live sample of oil, not oil that is set in the bottom of a sump. This is while the machine is running, you're pulling a live sample. It's going to be a more accurate sample of what the oil, what's actually occurring with that oil. The D-channel mainframe. The mainframe of this machine is a D-channel that is extruded at the mill in one piece. There's no seam to it. It's very strong, very durable, runs the entire skirt length of the upper structure from the cab to the counterweight on both sides. Even though this is a strong frame, it can be damaged. So we have it available from Service Parts in 2 and 4 foot lengths. We maintained our side-by-side pumps, and we recess our pilot pump well back into the house for protection. The side panels on the G-Series have been recessed 1 inch on the frame for protection, and we continue that up the counterweight. So when an operator bumps into the dirt pile, it's less likely to damage the door. We lengthened the main frame of the G by 8 inches, and the reason that length increase was to accommodate the Tier 4 engine, the Tier 4 emissions components, and the larger coolers required to cool this engine. By lengthening it 8 inches, we were able to keep the height increase down to 3 inches. So our engineers decided to go longer versus taller. Many of our competitors have gotten very tall and limit the visibility off the machine. The counterweight was lightened. Because we lengthened away from the swing bearing farther, by lightening the counterweight, we've maintained the weight from the D-Series and the balance from the D-Series. Moving back over here, up over my left shoulder, is a mirror mounted on top of the counterweight. This mirror meets the ISO standard for rear visibility on the machine without a camera, which brings me to the optional rear view camera. This camera, when operating, displays in the monitor in the cab, and it is on all the time. So when the operator is swinging the machine and working, he has a clear view of what is occurring behind the machine. Now, from the cab, in his view, a distance of 3 feet, he can see my feet. Excellent visibility close into the machine. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Mike on this side. Michael?
Thank you, Matt. Matt just told you that they increased the frame back here by about 8 inches. So the doors are bigger, longer. A couple things to notice here is notice all the perforation on the side of the doors. Not only the side of the doors, but also on the engine hood up here. Think of all of the airflow that can come through this area for our coolant. Now, a couple things about putting the perforation on the outside is you have a contractor that's taking clearing trees, or a demolition contractor, he's going to get a lot of debris built up on here. And when he shuts the tractor off, it all falls on the track. Now, let's think about our competition. Our competition actually takes and puts their screen in here. When they put their screen in here to clean it, they have to climb up on top. And also, when they shut their tractor off, it all falls down on the batteries. Not a good thing. A couple other things. If you got a contractor that's working demolition and he gets a lot of fluff, insulation and stuff like that, that could build up and cause damage to the coolers, what you can do is you can actually get some weather stripping. And come along here and put your weather stripping here, and it will take and seal everything out of this compartment. Okay, I'm going to open the doors up on this machine, and show you some of the components on the inside here. When we were up on top, we identified the coolers. Remember, we said that this was the hydraulic cooler right here. We said this is the radiator, and we said this is your aftercooler located right here. Now this is your fuel cooler, and this is your air conditioning condenser. And what I want you to notice is right here. Notice the distance between the cooler and the fuel cooler. And think about having a dirty cooler and you need to clean it out with a wand. You can actually stick a wand behind here and clean it out. Pretty easy to do. Or you can take 4 bolts loose right here and lay it right out here and clean it out. Our batteries are located right here, and it's a nice place to service them. Not only is it a nice place to service, I could actually service them from the ground right here. I want to take you back to this component right here. And you're going to see the factory option right here. This is our pattern selector. Now we can also field install a pattern selector, and we'd put it back here on the back wall. Now the pattern selector has 2 positions. It has what it's in right now is the excavator position. If I move it over here, it's the backhoe position. Now what happens if I just move it halfway? It's not in the backhoe and it's not in the excavator. And what's going to happen right here, this is called vandal protection. And the boom and the arm will not work. Now you know a lot of these contractors come down here and they borrow somebody else's machine. They all have a key. But they can't make the machine move because they won't come back here and look at the pattern checker. Now if I'm going to take and service my windshield washer, I can fill it up right here. Pretty easy to do from the ground. You also notice back on the back corner over there, that's my ether aid. Now for cold starting, that's a good idea. But we can also take and put a block heater on the machine and plug it into 110 so your coolant's warm. But if I'm out on a pipeline, I don't have any 110 out there. So what we have is a diesel fuel fired cooler. And the way that works is it actually takes diesel from the tank and it warms up the coolant. Not only is the engine warm, but when the operator climbs in the cab would be warm. 2 neat things so he can go right to work. Okay, we talked about this air filter when we were on top. It does have a little valve, dust valve right here, so that as it moves, it's going to take and bring a lot of the dust out of the machine. Now, if I'm going to service this, there's a little lever right here, and actually pull it and turn it. And I could take the cover right off of here. You also notice right here, this is the brains of your tractor. This is your ECU. This is what makes everything work on top up there. It puts it in the best scenario to be most productive. This is where you're going to hook up to your service advisor. And the next, this is JD Link. Now JD Link is standard on our 120 to our 850. And there's a ton of information you get on there. It links up with Machine Information Center. So I can get operational time, non-operational time. I can get heat. I can actually build the fence around this tractor. So that if it is being moved, it'll call me up on my cell phone and say it's about to be moved. So, pretty good idea to have JD Link. This is a 3-year contract on the machine. And it comes standard again on 120 to 850.